Good morning, Kenya. Rise and shine to the morning momentum. Your daily dose of a comprehensive rundown of the top stories making the headlines. Today is the 13th day of June 2025. It's a Good Friday. And this is a daily compendium of local and international news, human interest stories, current affairs, and expert opinion. Use the hashtag The Morning Momentum at Younib Media TV at Alphonce Albakwekwe. Let's take a look at the Daily Nation this morning. On the front page, budget day chaos, Ojwang death fury. Now, pandemonium, the murder of Albert Ojwang in police custody snowballed into a national security nightmare yesterday, with Nairobi city center plunged into an orgy violence. The violent protests that saw some people injured and vehicles torched coincided with the morning appearance in Parliament by security chiefs and overshadowed Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi's maiden budget speech in the afternoon. That story is beefed up for you on page 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. On to the budget. Mbadi explodes 70 billion shillings Adani-type deals. Now, the country is eyeing Adani-type deals worth 70 billion shillings in the new financial year as the government increasingly turns to the public-private partnerships model to finance infrastructure projects in a strategy to avoid piling up more debt. That story is beefed up for you on page 6 and page 7. Let's get up close and candid with the nation. On page 2 this morning, day of chaos, protests over Ojwang's murder rock city overshadow Mbadi's maiden budget's pitch. Now, growing calls to apprehend the killers of a teacher murdered in police custody snowballed into a national security crisis yesterday that plunged Nairobi city center into hours of protest, and you have the extensive coverage of that in pictorials on page 2 and page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's take a look at page 4. Return of demos. City center shut down as Kenyans demand justice. Kenyans marching in the streets of Nairobi sought to interrupt the reading of the budget as they chanted "No justice, no budget." Police used tear gas, water cannons, and bullets to thwart protesters' attempts to reach Parliament and Mr. Lagat's office. That story is beefed up for you on page 4 and page 5. This morning on page 6, Kenya seeks 70 billion shillings from PPPs to fund infrastructure. Now, major projects at advanced stages include 4 power transmission lines expected to cost 31.8 billion shillings. Reliance on Adani-type deals for projects is aimed at reducing dependence on debt and tax. Now, 32 the 70 billion earmarked for public-private partnership projects in the 2025-2026 financial year that will go towards 32 infrastructure projects. On page 7, still on the budget 2025-2026, tax relief for importers of wheat and rice in EAC deal. Now, Kenya relies on imports to meet more than 3/4 of its wheat demand. Regional Council of Ministers last month granted Kenya's request for an extension of duty remission. That story is beefed up for you on page 7. Let's stay there a little bit. Treasury to borrow 635 billion shillings from domestic market. Now, the government will borrow 635.5 billion shillings from the domestic market in the next financial year, triggering fears of crowding out the private sector as it seeks to fill 923.2 billion shillings budget gap. The National Treasury targets to borrow an additional 30 billion shillings, a 4.9% increase from the Kenyan market compared to the current financial year, when it borrowed 605.7 billion shillings. Now, we stay a little bit with the budget again. Carry 174 billion shillings from tax cheats in Mbadi's soft finance bill. Now, the Treasury will pursue tax evaders and expand the tax base to raise an additional 174 billion in the financial year starting July, having opted against introducing major new taxes in the finance bill. The budget documents released yesterday show that the Kenya Revenue Authority will be required to collect 2.754 trillion shillings in the financial year 2025-2026, up from the current target of 2.58 trillion shillings to help fund the 4.29 trillion shillings national budget. Also this morning, wealthy families to pay for exam fees in state proposal. Now, students from wealthy and middle-income families will be required to pay national examination fees if a proposal by the National Treasury is adopted, bringing to an end a decade-long full waiver introduced by former President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2015. Now, let's move on and take a look at page 8. Investigation: 2 civilians and an officer arrested in Ojwang murder probe. Now, lawmakers demand records that will give a true timeline of events from Ojwang's arrest to death. Kanja says his deputy Lagat will step aside once he records a statement with IPOA. That story is beefed up for you on page 8. Now, let's move on and take a look at page 10. Ruto's quiet revolution, building a fair society from the bottom up. Now, the government is on course to deliver 150,000 units that have been under construction over the past 2 years. President Ruto has prioritized long-term national renewal over short-term political expediency. That story is beefed up for you on page 10. Now, let's move on and take a look at more stories here. We shift gears to the expert opinion. Now, silence is complicity. Open letter to foreign missions. Now, the question is whether you will be remembered as partners in that change or as silent spectators who choose caution over courage. Those are sentiments by Nelson Amenya, and you want to catch up with that on page 15. Now, more expert opinion is beefed up for you on page 17, and let us look at the other one. Why did nation miss Ojwang? Medical negligence stories. Now, the Nation team has since redeemed itself with aggressive and comprehensive follow-up coverage. You want to catch up with that on page 17. Now, let's move on and look at the DN2, The Voice article this Friday. When Fathers Weep is the top story on the DN2 Voice article. Now, 9 Kenyans share intimate stories of the men who shaped them as another father mourns his son who died in police custody. You want to catch up with that human interest story on page 4 and page 5 of the DN2 article. Quick first, let's take a look at the county news this morning. We start with Nyeri County. State cracks down on rogue kangaroo courts. Now, the state has since responded by dissolving the Nyumba Kumi committees. Victims of sexual abuse accuse elders of demanding bribes before hearing cases. Now, in Nyeri's Majengo area, some families seeking justice for victims of sexual abuse claim they have been asked to pay bribes of up to 10,000 shillings to village elders just to have their cases heard. These disturbing allegations are part of a broader outcry from residents who accuse the now disbanded Nyumba Kumi committees and informal courts of widespread corruption, shielding criminals and mishandling gender-based violence cases. In Nairobi County this morning, MP Baraza's helicopter and 6 cars seized over 4 million shillings lawyers' debt. Now, an auctioneer has attached a helicopter and 6 vehicles belonging to Kimilili MP Didmas Baraza over a debt of 4.4 million shillings owed to a law firm. Betico auctioneers seized the helicopter, valuing it at 2 million, and vehicles estimated between 500,000 and 1 million, along with household items. These assets were attached in a bid to recover the debt owed to the law firm of Nchogu Omwanza and Nyasimi Advocates. That story is beefed up for you on page 21. Let's take a look at more county news on page 22. Meru County this morning, power struggle splits during Cheke as elders now turn on each other. For the past 10 months, the council's recognized officials have been locked out of shrine. The enduring Cheke Council of Elders, long held in high regard by the Ameru communities for its ability to resolve complex civil disputes, is now paralyzed by internal leadership wrangles that have eroded its authority and shaken public confidence. Let's come back to Nairobi again. MPs vow to impeach CS if hotel plan in Ngong Forest continues. Now, a parliamentary committee has threatened to initiate impeachment proceedings against the Environment CS Deborah Mulongo if her ministry fails to halt the construction of a private hotel inside Ngong Forest. The National Assembly Committee on Environment on Tuesday directed the Ministry of Environment and Forestry to immediately stop the ongoing works, demanding transparency on the identity of the developer and the legality of acquiring the public forest land. Now, in the Metropolitan, youth turn Ngong River banks into playground. Now, youths and children in Mukuru slums have turned stretches of Ngong River's riparian land into makeshift football pitches, using weekends to hone their skills despite looming safety risks. Also this morning, reprieve as county repairs market roofs. Now, more than 2,000 traders at Mudhurwa market are relieved after the county government repaired leaking roofs that had previously disrupted their businesses. The contractor has been replacing the old worn-out iron sheets with new, longer and wider ones, providing full cover for the stalls that were previously exposed to rain. Now, in Uasin Gishu County, how pastor tried to save marriage before a woman's murder. Now, a pastor with New Life International Church on Wednesday told an Eldoret court how his attempts to reconcile a troubled couple failed, culminating in the wife's brutal murder. Pastor Timothy Kizili, Elias' favor, was testifying in the trial of Francis Mwangi Ndirangu, accused of killing his wife Rael Cherop Biwot, an accountant at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, and a mother of 4. Now, with that story from Uasin Gishu, we shift gears and take a look at the international news. Tragedy, more than 200 killed as Air India plane crashes soon after takeoff. 204 bodies recovered from crash site with no reports of survivors being found. Boeing Dreamliner crashed into hostel outside the airport during lunch hour. And that is beefed up for you on page 23. Also this morning, Zambia's president not wanted at Lungu's funeral. Now, Zambia's former president, Edgar Lungu, who died last week, left instructions that his successor, Hakainde Hichilema, quote unquote, should not be anywhere near his body, a family spokesperson has said. This is the latest development in the bitter feud over funeral plans for the late president following his death in South Africa at the age of 68. Now, let's take a look at business news. Kenya received 65 billion shillings in first UAE loan drawdown. Now, this is the last-minute dash to meet external borrowing targets before the fiscal year ends. The figure stands at 198 billion shillings. That is the total borrowing expected in the UAE. Now, also briefly in the finance sector, CBK eyes 50 billion shillings from sale of 2 reopened bonds. The Central Bank of Kenya is seeking 50 billion from 2 reopened bonds with eyes on rounding off local borrowing for the financial year ending June 30th. The first of the reopened bonds is a 15-year paper first sold in 2020 and which has 9.7 years left to maturity. Now, in the energy sector, LTWP, the electricity output falls on low wind speed. Now, Lake Turkana Wind Power's annual electricity supply to Kenya Power dipped to its second lowest last year on reduced wind speeds, which hurt generation from the biggest wind plant in Africa. The company disclosures show that LTWP's net generation was 1,367 megawatts hour from 1,481 megawatts hour produced in 2023. Now, with that, we can take a quick look at what we have in the sports news. Let's start with golf. Now, golfer Legirma 6 redemption in Ruiru. Thika Greens Golf Resort hosts Murang'a County investors Tony tomorrow. He returns to the venue of Wednesday's loss in Sunshine Development Tour event to compete in Ruiru Open. Now, also Mathare United secure 20 million sponsorship deal. Former Football Kenya Federation Premier League FKF champions Mathare United are eyeing a strong finish to the current campaign by winning their last 2 remaining matches. The 2008 champions got a major boost in pursuit of this goal yesterday after signing a one-year sponsorship deal worth 20.6 million shillings. Now, let's take a look at athletics. University lad Kipkirui eyes Tokyo berth. US-based Kenyan athlete wins 10,000 meters final at NCAA Championships in Oregon. He missed out on the team for the 2023 World Championships after finishing 4th in the trials. Now, also KVF told to resolve no-K voting row internally. Now, the Kenya Volleyball Federation, KVF President Charles Nyaberi, has suffered a setback in his bid to represent the federation in the National Olympic Committee of Kenya elections. The Sports Dispute Tribunal on Wednesday dismissed Nyaberi's appeal, ruling that the matter must be resolved internally within KVF before being escalated externally. And on the cover page of the Daily Nation this morning, reduced funding for anti-doping body hampers vital fight against the menace. Now, ADAC was set up to save Kenya from an international ban over increased doping cases involving Kenyans. The inexplicable budget reduction from 288 million shillings to 20 million shillings alarmed the Kenyan sports fraternity. Now, slashing the budget of the Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya, ADAC, from 228 million to 20 million in September 2024 by the William Ruto government was a serious blow in the fight against use of banned performance enhancing substances by Kenyan athletes. The move raised significant concerns about Kenya's commitment to addressing the scourge of doping. Many wondered whether the government was fully committed in the fight against doping, especially considering the threat to Kenya's status as an athletics giant globally. Now, as we conclude, sports gets 16.69 billion shillings in Mbadi's budget, but no specifics on 2027 AFCON preparations. Now, the Treasury CS, John Mbadi, has proposed an allocation of 16.69 billion shillings to the Department for Sports in the 2025-2026 financial year. The amount forms part of the 29.7 billion proposed to support tourism growth, sports, culture, recreation, and the arts in the financial year starting July 1st. Now, with that budget allocation to the sports docket, we come to the tail end of the morning momentum. This 13th day of June 2025. Thank you so much for choosing to stay with the best youth television network in Eastern Central Africa and for choosing to watch the morning momentum. My name has been Alphonce Ouma. Do have a beautiful weekend ahead of you. Take care. See you on Monday morning, same time, same place. Until then, do have a great weekend ahead of you. Bye bye for now.